Accepting your mistakes, wisdom of an 80-year-old man. When a person reaches the age of 80, he no longer sees the world as he did in his youth. Where once ego and success were most important, now peace and self-reflection hold greater value. At 80 years old, a man no longer tries to prove himself. Instead, he tries to understand himself. One, the illusion of being right. In youth, we believe that being right is power. We argue, defend ourselves, and sometimes hurt others just to prove that we are not wrong. But as age gradually dissolves ego, we begin to realize being right is not as important as being truthful. The world does not remember our victories, but our wisdom. Ego builds walls, but acceptance builds bridges. At 80, a man looks back at his life and wonders, how many arguments did I win? But at what cost? How many people did I lose simply because I was afraid of being wrong? To the heavy burden of unexpected mistakes. A young person makes a mistake and moves on, but an old man carries the weight of his mistakes in his heart. Even if others forget, his soul remembers. He recalls the times he got angry at his children, thinking discipline was more important than love. The friendships he broke simply because saying, "Don't misunderstand me," felt too heavy. The moments his wife only wanted a simple apology, but he chose silence instead. And at 80, he finally understands the hardest truth. A mistake that is not accepted becomes a wound that never heals. 3, the greatest lesson from a servant. One day, King Veerprada Singh sat with his old servant Ramal, who had served to the palace for 60 years. The king asked Ramal, "What have you learned from me in all these years?" Ramal smiled and said, "Maharaj, it is not I who learned from you, but you who learned from me. The question is, did you accept it or not?" The king was shocked. How could a servant dare to teach him a lesson? Ramal continued, "You scolded me many times, got angry at my mistakes, but when you made mistakes, you never accepted them, Maharaj. The greatest weakness of a human being is that he refuses to acknowledge when he is wrong." The king's mind filled with memories of the past. He had rejected his generals, his ministers, even his family with harshness, but had never admitted his own mistakes. That night, for the first time, King Veerprada Singh looked at himself in the mirror and accepted, "I made mistakes, but today I own them for power of saying I was wrong." At 80, a person realizes that his biggest regrets were not his mistakes, but his refusal to accept them. Now he understands saying "I was wrong" does not make you small. It makes you human. Apologizing is not about the past. It is about freeing yourself in the present. Only by accepting mistakes can you learn from them and move forward. 5, the final reflection. A day comes when there is no audience, no applause, no arguments to win. Just a man and his thoughts. He looks in the mirror not as a king, not as a warrior, not as a father, not as a businessman, but simply as a soul on a journey. Softly he whispers to himself, "I was wrong, I made mistakes. But today I accept them, and because I have accepted them, I am finally free." And at that moment, he feels lighter than he has ever felt in his entire life. Lessons from accepting your mistakes. 1, making a mistake is not a sin, but refusing to admit it is the biggest mistake. 2, ego builds walls, but acceptance builds bridges. 3, the world does not remember your victories. It remembers your wisdom. 4, apologizing is not weakness. It is a sign of inner strength. 5, freeing yourself from your own guilt is the greatest freedom. 6, mistakes are your teachers, but only if you let them teach you. 7, being truthful is more important than being right. 8, a mistake that is accepted becomes a lesson, but a mistake that is denied becomes a burden. 9, relationships thrive on acceptance and understanding, not arguments. 10, the strongest person is the one who can correct his mistakes. 11, accepting a mistake does not damage self-respect. It strengthens it. 12, if you don't accept your mistake in time, you may regret it for a lifetime. 13, acceptance is the first step towards change. 14, silence is an answer, but the truest answer is always yes. I was wrong. 15, The biggest lessons in life often come from our biggest mistakes. Conclusion: mistakes happen to everyone. But the difference between the successful and the unsuccessful, the wise and the ignorant, the true and the false is this: who accepts their mistakes and who does not.